Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Liam here, and today thought I would bring you guys a tutorial on how I do my color grading. I do all my color grading in After Effects, and this is the color grading that I use for all my camera footage, whether it's video or it's photo. And yeah, so I have 3 picture examples that I took. They're all raw right now, no color correction is on them. I have this one, and then this one, and then this one. These were all taken from my trip to Japan and Korea. And yeah, I will also link in the description the camera that I use. It's nothing special. And then if you also want to download these presets, I also have the project file available for purchase on my Payhip. So if you just want the presets, you can purchase those. So I have a couple of different ones, and I always start with the same 4 things. I always use film grain, whether it's the grain in Dehancer or I just apply the effect. I use Lumetri color, and I use some sort of curve or levels. The plugins that you will need are Dehancer Pro, I believe. Everything else comes inside After Effects. That is the only plugin that I use for color correction. So this one here is a little bit more of a warmer tone, and you always have to I've gotten to the habit of lazily using my presets for photos. I'll just use the same one, but try and get the repetition of altercating your CCs for every photo because it's not gonna look the same. But yeah, this is like a warmer tone one. And this is what it looks like for all the photos. So it gives it that really like nostalgic, that's just the vibe that I like going for, is that nostalgic kind of, I guess, film look is what they call it. Film emulation is what they're calling it. The second one is this one. It's just more of a, it doesn't really have much of a tint or temperature to it. It's just more of a like contrast, I guess you could say. So it gives it that old like digicam look. And then this is the last one. This is more of a cooler temperature one. It's not as warm as the first one. So that's what it looked like on that photo, on this photo. Changing the exposure, shadows, and then the temperature can give it a sort of like a vibe. And then that's the last one. Anyways, I'll just run through what I do with the effects. So with film grain, I honestly just leave this at default pretty much. And sometimes I'll use the film grain in Dehancer. Really, all of these effects here are in Dehancer, but that's just what I prefer. So for input, I usually leave this at Rec 709. If you're shooting with a camera that shoots in log, if you know what S-log is, it is a certain video, I guess, type. And basically what S-log does, or log, is the format, is it allows you to have the most dynamic range of colors in your video when you're post-production. Unfortunately, I shoot with a digicam. Well, not unfortunately, but I shoot with a digicam, and it does not have log. It's just raw video, right? And so I just leave it at Rec 709. But typically, you would want to choose your camera here, the camera that you're shooting with, and then convert from log footage. And then film. This is going to be your film emulation, aka like film camera. And you can choose, like, what I'll do is I'll look up, like, I have an idea. I've used this enough to where I've kind of memorized what kind of looks certain films give, but there's a whole bunch of them that you can choose from, depending on what type of just tonage or coloring you're trying to go for. Enable like all of these for the most part. A lot of these I usually, sometimes I'll keep film grain on, but I turn this off because I'm just using the film up here, film grain up there. Halation is like, gives a little bit of like a glow kinda. You can see the minor difference when I do it there. It just gives it a little bit of glow, like a RGB kind of thing. Bloom is kind of like the same thing, where it's like, it's a little bit of like glow. And then I don't really use vignette or damage or anything, but you can. So that's the main thing, really the film and the emulation there, and that's like the main thing that I use Dehancer for. Lumetri color is for all of my temperatures, exposures, tints, contrasts, adjusting the highlights and the shadows, your whites and your black balances. And then I always mess with, sometimes I'll come in here, I always change this too, because this just adds to the look, and you can choose a whole bunch of these. Sometimes I play with the shadow tint, right? If I want the scene to be more, cooler toned, warmer toned, I'll play with those. Sometimes I'll use curves here, depending on just what I'm feeling. I will touch the color wheel sometimes, just kind of adjust this. As you can see, again, the way that I move it, depending on what color. You don't want to do too much, obviously, but just a little bit can add, right? It's slightly more cooler than it was before. Levels, I'm pretty sure everybody knows how to use this, but this is just kind of changing the lighting and the exposure, the contrast, whatnot. You can go in the red and the greens and the blues, and you can adjust certain, again, it's just really, in essence, you're changing the temperature tonage. but you can always just play around with that and just adjust it what you like. But yeah, that is all I do for my color corrections for all of my camera footage. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.